All right, let's be honest, folks. Nobody wants to relive the COVID-19 pandemic. We all collectively lived through that mess, hoarding toilet paper, baking questionable bread, and perfecting the art of the awkward Zoom call. But here's the thing, just because we've tossed out our sourdough starters and ventured back out into the world doesn't mean COVID-19 just disappeared. We're talking about the long-term impacts on things that really matter: poverty, crime, inflation, the whole shebang. So buckle up, because in this series, we're diving headfirst into the lasting consequences of COVID-19. Look, we all know poverty is a persistent stain on humanity's report card, a problem that existed long before COVID-19 decided to crash the party, but it's like this. Imagine poverty as a deep, dark hole. For many, it was already tough just to see the edge, let alone climb out. Then, COVID-19 swaggered in and shoved a whole bunch more people into that hole. The World Bank called it the first increase in global poverty in decades. Millions were pushed below the poverty line, particularly in those parts of the world where folks were already living on the thinnest of margins. Economies are slowly clawing their way back from the brink, but the recovery is uneven. Some regions are bouncing back quicker than others, leaving millions still struggling to afford basic necessities. Now let's talk about crime, because apparently a global pandemic wasn't enough excitement for one decade. COVID-19 created a perfect storm for certain types of crime. Think about it. Widespread job losses, businesses shutting down, people stuck at home simmering in a potent mixture of anxiety and uncertainty. Some places saw spikes in things like domestic violence, burglaries, and cybercrime. But here's the good news. As economies recover and life regains some semblance of normalcy, crime rates in many areas are expected to either stabilize or even decrease. Of course, this isn't a guarantee, and the long-term impacts of the pandemic on crime trends will likely be debated by experts for years to come. All right, let's talk about everyone's favorite topic, inflation. Remember all those supply chain disruptions we heard about during the pandemic? They had real consequences, like making it nearly impossible to find a reasonably priced car or a PlayStation 5. And then there was all that stimulus spending, which, don't get me wrong, was necessary to keep people afloat, but it's a bit like using a fire hose to water your houseplants. Sure, they're hydrated, but you've also probably flooded your living room. All that extra money sloshing around contributed to the inflation surge, making everything more expensive. Now, the good news is that by 2025, most experts predict that inflation will have calmed down, but don't expect it to disappear entirely. So where does this all leave us in 2025? Well, imagine the global economy as a tightrope walker, balancing precariously one shaky step at a time. On one hand, we've got the good news. Most experts agree that the global economy is expected to continue its recovery. We're talking growth, baby, jobs, investments, the whole 9 yards. But, and you knew there was a but, right? This recovery isn't going to be a free-for-all of prosperity. Economic inequality, still a thing. Labor markets adapting to new realities, you betcha. It's like this. Imagine you're at a buffet, but instead of everyone getting a plate, some people get a full 5-course meal, while others are stuck with a single, slightly bruised apple. So there you have it, folks. The COVID-19 pandemic may be fading into the rearview mirror, but its impact will continue to shape our world for years to come. We're facing a future where poverty persists, crime remains a complex issue, inflation lingers like a bad smell, and the global economy walks a tightrope between recovery and uncertainty. But here's the thing, we're not powerless in the face of these challenges. By implementing equitable recovery strategies, strengthening social safety nets, and promoting economic diversification, we can mitigate the long-term consequences of COVID-19 and build a more resilient and just future. The choices we make today will determine what the world looks like in 2025 and beyond. Let's make sure it's a world we can all be proud of.